I am ridiculously excited to make fun of myself, so let's just get this started. Hello everybody, Aylin Hart here. So what I'm going to be doing today, I'm kind of excited about. So I bumped into a video the other day. It was talking about everything I've ever written even though nobody asked, and I just thought it was so funny. Her video was so great. I'm gonna go ahead and link it down below. I don't know if you guys can see it or not, but I have this huge bruise on my chin. One of my friends and I, we have this special hug that we do where he's really tall and I'm really short, and I run and he picks me up and we spin around, and I smashed my chin into his face and I wound up with a giant bruise. So that's exciting. So what I wanted to do was just kind of my own spin on that, because I thought it was really funny, and what a great way to talk about the stuff that you've written. And she definitely poked some fun at herself, and I love poking fun at myself. So I thought what I would do was talking about everything I've ever written, but with every mistake that I've made along the way. Because once again, I keep talking about I've made a lot of mistakes. I've done a lot of just dumb things in my publishing journey. So I thought, what better way to do it than actually have examples and talk about all the mistakes that I made. Okay, so this conversation would not be complete without my first book, which is The Island. I made so many mistakes with this book. I'm not even sure if I can list them all, but let's go ahead and try. So first of all, let me just start by saying I wrote this book. At this point now, it's been 10 years. So I wrote it 10 years ago. I had never studied the craft of writing. I just wrote for pure pleasure. I knew absolutely nothing, and that is important to mention. So I wrote the book, and I did do something with it. That's its own story. So let's just talk about the cover. Okay, let's talk about the cover. By looking at this cover, would you ever have guessed that this was a male-female-male menage romance? No, me either. Yeah, that's mistake number one. I will freely admit, I've admitted this before, I knew nothing about the romance genre before I decided to just jump in head first and get started. That has since changed. I now know about my genre, but I'd never really read romance before. I don't know why I decided to start writing it. I mean, I know why I decided to start writing it, but I don't know what made me think that I could do that without researching what I was getting myself into. I have such a love-hate relationship with this book. So yes, I knew nothing about the romance genre, and I specifically decided I didn't want a sexy cover because I wanted to be unique and special and different and intriguing. And while, maybe for some other kind of story, maybe a women's fiction or a YA, this would work. My big, and I don't know if you can see, my big clue that this was about two different dudes is right there in the lens, because you're gonna look that close when you're looking for a menage romance, right? Anyway, I digress. The writing was awful, and this is not a slam at anybody who actually read this book and liked it, because I know that there were people who read it and liked it. What I think that they liked was my idea, not my execution, because I still to this day, and we'll talk about it in a minute, love this idea. It's when I started to learn more, I realized that the execution was horrifying. Moving on. Mistake number two. I knew nothing about formatting. I didn't know that there were people who formatted books, and this is, if I'm lying, I'm dying, strike me dead right now. All I did was I took my Word doc manuscript and I uploaded it to Amazon and called it a day. And when I downloaded the book, words ran lengthwise. I couldn't make that up if I was trying. Yes, words ran lengthwise down the page. Horrifying. Now, here was my other mistake. I made so many mistakes with this book. I also thought that me publishing this right away, people were just going to be buying it left and right, and I was going to make so much money. So when I realized that words were running lengthwise, I had a full-blown panic attack and learned how to format so that people who were, scrambling to buy my book in droves, all 5 of them, wouldn't get a bad book. So, yeah. Mistake number 3 with this book. Not only did I not know my genre, not only did I know nothing about formatting or writing or constructing a story for that matter, I knew nothing about marketing. And I'm going to link it down below because it really is so funny. All I did, and by the way, Aileen Hart is not my real name. So I got on my Facebook page with my real name and I posted, as of today, I'm a published author. And I thought that people would rush and buy my book. Nobody bought my book. I think maybe 20 people bought this book, and quite a few people downloaded it in KU. Okay, let's talk about the other covers before I talk about the reviews. So yeah, so this was my first cover, and I realized this wasn't going to sell books. It did have a second cover. I'll pop it up on the screen because I don't actually have a copy of that book. I did make a sexier cover, and then I yanked it. I was like, oh, this is too sexy. I don't want this book attached to me. So it moved to another cover. So I'm going to go ahead and drop this now. I decided I wanted something sexier. We're not going to talk about this cover. This lasted a month. I kept thinking that the cover was the issue of why people weren't buying it and noticing it. That wasn't the issue, but you know, I let myself believe that. So the final cover for this book before I yanked it off the shelves was this. Again, we're getting a little sexier, kind of like this one, but again, can't really tell it, you know, there's 3 people involved in this book, so yeah. Are we ready to move on from, oh no, the reviews. So it was when I finally started getting reviews from people who were not my family and friends that I realized that the writing was kind of a problem. And it was really upsetting at first. I'm not gonna lie, I did cry over a couple of them, and that's okay. You know what? I learned something valuable, and instead of getting really upset and not writing again, I decided to really learn about the craft of writing. And I remember I found some videos of J.A. Huss, and she talked about crafting a story, and so I put what I learned from that into action when I wrote my next book. This is Rocking Autumn. Now again, this is not the first cover. The first cover, and it was actually pretty cute. I'll pop it up on the screen as well. It was pretty cute, but I decided that I really wanted something sexier, so I went with this. Okay, here is the problem. Again, I didn't know about my genre. I did not know about genre expectations. So I wrote this book, and here's what I'm going to say. I love this book. I love this story. But I didn't know my genre, and I marketed it completely wrong and misled readers. I marketed it as a rock star romance. This is not a rock star romance. He is a musician. He plays rock and roll, but he plays in a bar band. And he's not rich, and he doesn't live a glamorous lifestyle. There's no drugs, sex, rock and roll, except for with him and the girl in the story. So I love this story to this day. However, the genre expectation was for a sexier, faster paced story. So some people read it, and I think once they got over the fact that it's not a rock star romance, they enjoyed it. And so this is one of those books I think that people, my reviews are really mixed on this. Like some people really got it and they really loved it, and then some people, and I can't blame them, really had an expectation and I did not meet that expectation. So again, by having this super sexy cover, I let readers down because it was misleading to the book. And then something you should never do is really put symbolism on books, because people thought it was set in Canada, and it's not set in Canada. And yeah, it was a symbol. It's a symbol from something in the book, and again, I thought I was being all artsy and creative. Now at this time, I really did start working on branding myself, and so I started playing with my author name on books to really have a more uniform look. And then this is also when, again, and it was, I think in a video I talked about where I learned how to brand all my images. I realized it was J.A. Huss again. She had this marketing series on her YouTube page, so I'll link those two because I learned so much from those. So this is the first book. To be honest, I do consider Rocking Autumn my debut novel because it's the first time I really tried to write a book. When I wrote The Island, I really was just trying to distract myself from something, and when I wrote Rocking Autumn, I really was trying to write a book, and I really worked on my structure and on pacing and on dialogue and all kinds of stuff. So I still really love this story. And the other thing that I really think that genre expectation wise is that this is a long distance relationship. And I think people understand now the way I write romance, but I try and be realistic. So while I'm writing about, you know, ridiculously hot people, I try and write realistic situations and realistic people. Like in this book, Jax, the main character, like he works in a mattress store, and they have a long distance relationship where they don't always get to see each other and they can't take flights to see each other. And so a lot of their relationship is via phone and Skype. And again, that is something that I should have marketed correctly, because it was something that pissed a lot of readers off, and I can't say that I blame them. Again, the people who found me through this book and have followed me since have since realized the way that I write romance is not the way a lot of other people write romance, in that I do really try and make very real people and very real situations out of ridiculously hot people. So I did rebrand this book, and then this was the new cover. And so I really feel like this tells the story a lot better than the shirtless dude with the leaf. It's a little bit moodier, and I have since taken the words rock star out of my description on Amazon, and this book actually does a lot better now. The cover does a lot better. My rewording of the blurb has done a lot better. So again, I learned a lot, and I'm really happy with the moodier cover because it did help set the tone of the story a little bit better. Moving on. So again, with this book is around the time that I actually got myself an author website and set up a .com and all kinds of stuff. I did follow some of the marketing things that I learned, and I did start making the teaser cards, although at the beginning none of them matched. And that's okay, like it's not a big deal, but to me, I'm a little bit type A, and so now I like that they match. And I'll pop a few up on the side, but you can see they weren't branded, that you couldn't really tell that they went to the books, you know, nothing like matched the covers or anything like that. And my big marketing once again for this book, no newsletter. I did have a Twitter and my fan page, and that's where I did most of my marketing. I did not hire a PR company. I didn't do the whole, you know, big release thing. It was more like I just posted on Facebook and Twitter that I'd released a book, and it did okay. Again, I think it was mostly family and friends, and then people started recommending it to their friends. And so, it wasn't terrible. I remember being really excited on release day because I sold a bunch of books, but knowing what I know now, it wasn't as big of a deal as I thought it was. But yeah, moving on. So, got some real tea about myself with this book. So first of all, let me just say, I fucking love this book. I love this story. I've talked freely about the fact that I do deal with depression and anxiety. I was going through some really heavy depression when I wrote this book. And I think that I took all my emotion and I put it into this story. I think that the pacing was great. I think I love the story. I love my resolution. I feel like it could have been a little bit longer. It's not very thick. I feel like I definitely could have beefed a few scenes up, but in all, I don't think that I would change anything about the way that I wrote this book. I really did start branding myself with my name on my books, and then I really started branding all of my advertising. I paid a PR company. This was an amazing release, and at this time, I decided to go ahead and do a paid newsletter with this book. I got an international BookBub deal with this book, and I studied how to do an international so that it was successful, It was very successful. I sold an actual shitload of books. Okay, guys, like I sold a shitload of books. I got the orange flag in the US, Canada, Australia, and the UK. So I got international bestseller in 4 countries in sports romance, which is a really tough category to crack. But I kind of thought it made me the shit. And in reality, it didn't. I got a little big for my britches. I'm not gonna lie. I thought I was a little bit cooler than I really was. And I let it go to my head. I will not lie about that. I let it go to my head. I thought it meant more than it did. And yeah, that's all I'm going to say about that. Yeah, I definitely let it go to my head and swiftly got knocked back down again, and that's okay. However, I would not change anything about this book. I would just change my fucking attitude about myself. Anyway, this book continues to be my bestseller. This book, I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's the theme. I don't know if it's the cover. I don't know if it's the blurb. I don't know if it's the reviews. This book continues to be my bestseller to this day, even though I have a bunch of other books out. So, moving on. Second book in the series, and as you can see, I learned that series need to be branded and match. I was the shit, right? Like, I was the baddest the bad. Like, I was like the up-and-coming sports romance writer. I'm gonna make so much money. I went and spent my first big paycheck from Amazon on a model photo, which, calm down, all my model friends and photographer friends, I still buy model photos. But I spent $750? Yeah, this was $750. I thought that by having a model on my cover, I would sell a shitload of books. I didn't. This book tanked. I still love this book. I had so much fun with this book. I really like the writing in this book. I really like this storyline. 90% of the people who read it love this story. I mean, of course, there's bad reviews, and I actually have planned a video on bad reviews. But I can't give this book away. I don't know what it is. So I think there's still a mistake somewhere. There's still a mistake somewhere. Maybe it's that I'm touting it as a foodie romance. And yeah, there's a lot of talk about food in here, a lot of talk about food prep. And maybe that's just not a thing. And I should have managed my expectations to take my own advice. But at the time when I released this, I did not have managed expectations. So when I released this book and it tanked spectacularly, mind you, tanked spectacularly, I was really upset. Yeah, that's all we need to say about that. It tanked spectacularly. Third book in the series. See, I'm still using model photographs. Model and photographer friends, I have not given up on my model photographs. I do it now to support the indie community. I do it now to support other indie people. But I do not do it now because I think that it's going to sell me 1 million books. This book, I feel like I did everything right. I don't have mistakes. I mean, I have mistakes. But what I mean is I think I planned everything right. I did it right with this book, and I had a great release. So we're gonna move on. Okay, so moving on is this anthology that I put together with my friend Kara. Because if you remember, I was the shit, right? I was like really important and stuff, and I had enough hubris about myself to think that I could put together an anthology, which I did, and it actually did pretty good, but I did not know how much work it was going to take. I didn't format it well at all. It definitely could have been better. I'm still proud that I did it, but I think that I went into it, again, with unrealistic expectations about a lot of things. But I'm still really proud that I did this. I'm still really proud of the book. I'm still really proud of all the donations that we made to the American Cancer Society, and I think that a lot of us got a bunch of new readers from it. So, but I think my mistake with this one was that I went into it with unrealistic expectations about my name and what that was going to do for this, and I can admit that freely that you know, I had a bit of an ego, and I thought this was going to be a bigger deal than it was, and it was still a big deal, and I'm still really proud of it. But yeah, I'm done talking about my ego because it's been knocked back into place by How We Fall. And then my most recent releases, and I have not gotten regular covers for these yet. There was a point where I really realized how bad The Island was. And I've had a lot of people who read it and liked it come back to me and be like, what didn't you like about it? Why did you pull it? And it's not something I was proud of. And I went to my first book signing last summer And when people would come to my table and talk to me, I would give them my spiel about my books, and for whatever reason, everybody was interested in the island. I think because it's the idea. And I kept trying to unsell the book. And when I came home from that book signing, I really had to take an inward look and think to myself, that's a problem, that you're trying to get people to, you went to this book signing trying to sell books and get new readers, and you're literally telling them, please don't buy this book. Like, that's a problem. It took me about a month or two to finally decide that I wanted to pull them off the shelf, or pull it off the shelf and completely gut it and rewrite it. And I pulled it off the shelf and I didn't touch it. And then after I finished something like this and the anthology was out, and I really wasn't ready to start my fourth and final story in that series, because the topic is something really heavy and emotional, and I just wasn't ready to go there yet, and I'm still not even sure I'm ready to go there yet. I'm not changing the story because just not changing the story, but it is really heavy emotionally and something that touches me really deeply, and so I really am going to need to be in the right headspace to finish it. So I decided to dive back into the island and rewrite it, and I'm very proud of this. And what I did is I offered people who'd bought it before, I offered them a free copy. In fact, I didn't even ask. I just sent it to them and I said, no expectations, here's this book. I think the only mistake I really made with these is maybe pricing. And I did a softer release because I really had moral qualms. This is much more genre, like you can see there's actually 3 people on the cover. Like, you can actually tell that maybe there's 3 people banging in this book. I did a very soft release. I did not go big or go home on this one. I talked a lot about my rewrite, but I had a lot of qualms about trying to sell something that I'd already sold. And to be honest, I can probably still go back and do it. I probably should have done book 1 for free and then book 2 for cheap. But I didn't. And the book is doing okay. It's slowly starting to get some reviews, which is a good thing. The people who reread it, they loved the rewrite. They said it completely reads like a new story. I really am in love with this. Yeah, I think that the mistake I made with this one was probably pricing, promo wise, to get it back out, and I probably could have gone big or gone home, but I was kind of out of money from the marketing of the past 2 books. And so yeah, I'm sure that there is other mistakes that I've made, but I think that those are the big ones. Here's what I think about mistakes, and I'm gonna misquote this quote, and I'm really sorry, but there was something I read a long time ago that said, the biggest mistake is being too afraid to make one at all. And as a person who has made a lot of mistakes in my life, and being the kind of person who just is sort of one of those, I'm going to jump in head first and figure out if I can swim later types, is that I've made a lot of mistakes and I've learned from every single one of them. And I think that it's really important to be able to reflect on things like that and look at your mistakes and better yourself from them, and not hide from them and not pretend to just, pretending that they don't exist, sweeping them under the rug. I think that that is not a smart thing to do, and I think that if you take your mistakes and you examine them, just like being able to read a bad review and really examine it and take it for what it is, that you can learn a lot. I learned a lot, especially from my first 2 books, just marketing wise, writing wise, cover wise, branding wise. I learned an incredible amount. Would I love to be able to go back and do it all again with everything that I know now? Yes and no. Yes, because there's so many different ways I could have debuted myself, and I've seen so many debut authors who really do great because they did it all right, because they had people who guided them and they took their time to research. I did not. I just wanted to put my book out there, and I thought that suddenly I was going to be this, rich, famous author, and, movie execs were going to be knocking down my door trying to make a movie out of my book. And it took making mistakes to realize Okay, you have a lot to learn here, so you better buckle up, sis, or you're gonna go spectacularly down. I think with my third book, where I did finally get some success and the way that I reacted to that, I learned a lot from that. And I learned that it is always best to be humble. Anyway, I hope that you guys enjoyed this little journey with me about my books and my writing and my mistakes. I had a lot of fun doing it, and I do enjoy being able to poke fun at myself and being able to, laugh at some things. I really wish I should just do a whole video about The Island where I read excerpts. Like, some of the sentence structure is just so weird. It's so bad. It's so horrifyingly bad that I can't even deal with it. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this week's video. I know that I had a lot of fun making it, taking myself back down this journey of all of my books and all of my spectacular mistakes. If you did enjoy it, please go ahead and give me a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button and the little bell next to it, and I will be back next week with more fun videos about books. Bye.